I'm Lotte Johnson. I'm an assistant curator for the Barbican. I worked on this exhibition, Basquiat, Boom for Real.
And tell us about the exhibition.
The exhibition is a really remarkable show because it's the first time in over 20 years that there's been a major exhibition on Basquiat's work in the UK. So it's felt like a long time coming and quite an overdue moment to share his work with the UK public. And there aren't any works in any public collections in the UK, so it feels really exciting to be able to share Basquiat's work. The exhibition really explores and celebrates the diversity of his source material. So this kind of encyclopedia that he was drawing from, whether that be bebop jazz, silent cinema, art history, his art historical heroes, ancient history, Egyptian mythology, the downtown scene. So that's really exploring this kind of incredible diversity of reference points that he was pulling into his work and kind of feeding off as an artist. Well, the Barbican is a cross-art centre and it celebrates art forms across many different mediums and the kind of blurring of lines between different art forms. And it's really a wonderful platform to show Basquiat's work because Basquiat himself was this incredibly interdisciplinary artist. He was a poet, he graffitied these incredibly poetic statements on the streets of New York in the late 1970s. He was also a DJ. He was constantly DJing at the Mug Club and other clubs in downtown New York. He produced a record called Beat Bop, so he was a producer as well as being an artist. He was making paintings and sculptures, so he had this incredibly diverse range of artistic practices that he was experimenting with, and that feels incredibly resonant to the Barbican's own mission as a cross-art centre.
And so this is the first exhibition of his work in the UK. Is it in Europe as well?
No, it's not. It's not actually the first exhibition of his work in the UK. It's the first since 1996. So there was a solo show of his work at the Serpentine in 1996. So it's 21 years since there's been a major show on Basquiat in the UK, which feels like a really great moment to share his work with perhaps a younger generation who haven't had access to his work and might see him as an incredibly important reference point and a kind of cult icon in their own lives or their own artistic practice, but just haven't had the chance to see his work in the flesh.
And it's a really incredible initiative that you guys are doing with Too Young for What, coming up on the 7th of October.
Yeah.
Tell me about how that came about.
So we really wanted to celebrate how Basquiat was incredibly young as an artist, and he was so prolific at such a young age and incredibly experimental. And I think that so many people start their artistic careers so early now, and we're experimenting kind of from a very young age with many different mediums. So we wanted to celebrate that and reflect that and kind of explore Basquiat's legacy today and how young artists or young practitioners might be influenced by Basquiat's practice and inspired to make their own work in the way that he did. So Too Young for What actually takes its starting point from this moment in Basquiat's own life where he first met Warhol. So he was making these artworks with Jennifer Stein, who was another artist. They were making these collages and colour Xeroxing them and cutting them up into 4 pieces to make postcards, and they would go out onto the street and sell these postcards for $1. And one day Basquiat saw Andy Warhol having lunch in Soho with art critic Henry Geldzeller, and he decided to approach them and he thought, I'm going to try and sell them a postcard. So he approached Andy Warhol and Geldzeller, and Andy Warhol bought one of his postcards for $1, but Geldzeller, the art critic, said, oh, you're too young, and Basquiat apparently said, too young for what? And so we took this as a kind of starting point for the day to celebrate the idea that you can't be too young. You can start whenever you want. You can experiment with your own practice and your own ideas. So the day on the 7th of October really celebrates that. There's going to be zine making, beatboxing, performances, lots of activities that young people can join in, and a special screening of Downtown 81, the film that Basquiat starred in himself. He plays this kind of down and out artist in New York, kind of basically playing himself, a young artist in search of his own identity.